Nobody warned her that one small decision could change everything. It was the kind of night that made you want to stay home. Rain hitting the windows hard, wind shaking the old sign above the diner door. The kind of cold that gets into your bones and just stays there. But Maya didn't have the option of staying home. She was already late for her shift. She ran 2 blocks in the rain, her sneakers soaked through, her hair plastered to her face. The door of Sal's diner swung open, and the smell of coffee and old grease wrapped around her like a warning dot. Sal was already glaring from behind the counter. 3 minutes, he said. Not hello, not good evening, just 3 minutes. Maya tied her apron without a word. She couldn't afford to fight with him. She couldn't afford anything right now, honestly. Her rent was due in 4 days. Her checking account had $41 in it, and her tips from yesterday, she'd used half of them to buy her little brother a birthday cake. Just a small one, the kind from the grocery store shelf. She didn't regret it for a second. The diner wasn't busy. A couple in the corner, 2 college guys near the window, and then, near the back, sitting alone, a man she hadn't seen before. He looked out of place, not in a dangerous way, just quiet, still. He wore a plain gray jacket, slightly worn at the collar. His hair was messy, not in a stylish way, just in a tired way. He was staring at the menu like he hadn't eaten in a while. Maya grabbed her notepad and walked over. Hi, what can I get for you tonight? He looked up. His eyes were dark, calm, and a little sad. Just coffee, he said. Actually, I don't know. What's good here? Maya almost smiled. Nothing was particularly good at Sal's, but she pointed to the chicken soup. That one, especially on a night like this. He nodded slowly. Okay, the soup, thank you. She brought it out 5 minutes later. He wrapped both hands around the bowl. She noticed his knuckles were rough. His watch was plain. Nothing about him screamed money. Nothing about him screamed anything, really. He just seemed like someone who needed a warm meal and a moment of quiet. She let him have it. The night wore on. Tables filled and emptied. Maya's feet ached. Around 9, the diner got quieter again. She noticed the man was still sitting there, just holding his coffee cup. She refilled it without being asked. Long night, she said. Long few months, he replied. She understood that. More than he knew. She didn't push further. She just nodded and moved on. Just before 10, he called her over. He asked for the check. Maya went to the register and printed it. $7.50. She brought it to the table. He reached into his jacket pocket, paused, reached into the other pocket. His face didn't change much, but she saw it. The slight tightening around the eyes, the way he went very still. He'd left his wallet somewhere. He looked up at her slowly, embarrassed but trying not to show it. I'm so sorry, he said quietly. I don't have. I left my. Maya looked at the ticket. $7.50. She thought about her $41. She thought about her rent. She thought about her brother's birthday cake. Then she took the ticket off the table. Don't worry about it, she said. It's covered. If you've ever done something kind for a complete stranger, you'll understand what happened next. And if you haven't yet, keep watching, because this story is just getting started. And trust me, you don't want to miss where it goes. Asterisk, asterisk, he didn't argue. That surprised her. Most people would. Most people would say, no, I'll come back tomorrow and pay. Or they'd make a big deal about it. make her feel like she'd done something huge. He just looked at her for a moment. Something moved behind his eyes. Hard to name it. Not relief. Not embarrassment anymore. Something quieter than both of those. "Thank you," he said. And he meant it. She could tell. Then he stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked out into the rain. Maya stood there holding the receipt. $7.50. She'd pay it out of her own tips. It wasn't the first time she'd done something like that. Probably wouldn't be the last. Sal appeared at her elbow. "You comped a table again." He forgot his wallet. Sal shook his head. "Maya, you can't keep doing this." She didn't answer. She just went back to wiping tables. She didn't think about the man again that night. She was too tired for thoughts. By the time she got home, her feet were numb and the rain had soaked through her jacket. She counted her tips in the kitchen. $43. She put $7.50 aside to cover the ticket. $35.50 left. She set her alarm for 6 a.m. and went to bed. The next morning came fast and gray. She had a breakfast shift, then an afternoon class at the community college. She was studying accounting, not because she loved numbers, but because she wanted something steady. Something that wouldn't leave her standing in a wet diner counting coins. She got through Tuesday and Wednesday, and by Thursday, she'd almost forgotten the man entirely. Then Sal called her into his office. His office was really just a closet with a desk. He was standing when she came in, which was weird. Sal never stood. "Someone came in asking about you," he said. Maya froze. Her first thought wasn't good. A person from your past who shows up unannounced at your job is usually not bringing flowers. Who? Sal handed her a business card. It was thick, cream-colored, the kind of card that costs more than most people think a card should cost. No logo. Just a name and a phone number. The name was Daniel Holt. She didn't recognize it. "He said he was here Monday night," Sal added. "Said you were kind to him." Maya stared at the card. Something about it felt off. Not dangerous, just significant. The weight of it in her hand felt different somehow. "What did he want?" she asked. "He just said to give you that. Said he'd like to speak with you. Said it was nothing weird." Sal paused. He also left an envelope. He placed it on the desk between them. Maya looked at it. White envelope. Her name written on the front in neat, careful handwriting. She picked it up and opened it slowly. Inside was $300 in cash and a note. The note said, "This doesn't come close to what your kindness was worth, but it's a start. Please call me if you're open to a conversation. No pressure, no obligation." Demaya stood in that little closet office for a long moment. $300. That was her rent covered. That was her brother's school shoes she'd been putting off buying. That was 2 weeks of groceries. But something else sat under the money. Under the relief, a question. Who was this man? And why did a stranger, someone who looked like he'd been having the worst few months of his life, have handwriting that looked like it belonged on a legal document? She tucked the envelope into her apron pocket and went back to work. But the question followed her all shift. Asterisk, asterisk. She waited 2 days before calling. Not because she wasn't curious. She was. She thought about that card every few hours. She'd even Googled the name, Daniel Holt. The results came back thin. A LinkedIn profile with almost nothing on it. A mention in some old business journal. Nothing that explained the thick card or the $300. So she called. It rang twice. Then a voice she recognized. "I wasn't sure you'd call," he said. Not cocky, just honest. "I wasn't sure either," she said. He asked if she'd be willing to meet during the day. A coffee shop of her choosing. He said he understood if she said no. She named a place near her college. Neutral ground, public. If he turned out to be strange, she could leave. He was already there when she arrived Saturday morning. He was dressed simply again. Dark jeans, a plain sweater. He had a coffee in front of him and nothing else. No laptop, no briefcase, no phone on the table. He stood when she walked in. Old-fashioned, she thought. They sat. She ordered tea. There was a brief silence. "You want to know who I am?" he said. "Wouldn't you?" she replied. He almost smiled. "Fair," he told her his name. "Daniel Holt." She nodded. He said it slowly, like he was giving her a chance to place it. She didn't. Then he told her what he did. He was the founder of a logistics company, one of the largest private freight and supply chain businesses in the country. She'd never heard of the company name either. He explained it wasn't a consumer brand. It operated behind other brands. The kind of company that kept store shelves stocked without anyone knowing it existed. Maya stared at him. "You're serious," she said. "I understand why it sounds strange," he replied. She looked at his sweater, his plain watch, his tired eyes. "Why were you at Sal's diner?" she asked. He was quiet for a second. Then he said something she didn't expect. "I was having a hard time. A very hard time. I'd been doing a lot of thinking about what things are really worth. Money, work, people." He looked down at his coffee. "I do this sometimes. I go out without anything identifying. No cards, no driver's license, just cash. I want to move through the world like a regular person for a night. And you accidentally left your cash somewhere," she said. He nodded. "It was a stupid mistake. I had a 50 in my jacket. I must have left it at the hotel." Maya thought about this. A billionaire in a borrowed kind of life, sitting alone in a cheap diner with nothing to his name for one night. And then the one person who helped him was a woman with $41 in her account. "Why did you come back?" she asked. He looked at her clearly. "Because I've had people do a lot of things for me over the years. Big things, expensive things. But nobody had done something like that in a very long time, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything. You didn't even ask my name." He looked at her clearly. "Because I've had people do a lot of things for me over the years. Big things, expensive things. But nobody had done something like that in a very long time, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything. You didn't even ask my name." Maya looked out the window. A group of students walked by, laughing about something. The city moved around them like it always did. $7.50 isn't exactly a sacrifice," she said quietly. "It was for you," he replied. "I could tell." She didn't argue with that. He told her he hadn't come to make a big scene. He hadn't come to write a check or hand her a life. He just wanted to meet the person she was, talk a little, and ask if there was something she actually needed. She thought about her brother's school shoes, her accounting class, her $41. She almost said nothing. Old habit. Instead, she told him the truth. Asterisk. She didn't ask for money. That was the thing. That was the part Daniel hadn't seen coming. He'd had people come to him with a list, with a plan, with a pitch. In all his years, almost no one had just said what she said. Maya set her tea down. She looked at him steadily. "I'm studying accounting," she said. "I'm good at it. My professor told me I should transfer to a 4-year school, said I had the mind for it." She paused. "But I can't afford to transfer, and I can't stop working because I help support my brother. So mostly what I need is just a way in, not a handout. A door, double quotes, silence. Daniel looked at her like he was calculating something, not in a cold way, more like he was making sure he heard her right. "A door," he repeated. "An internship. A real one. Not the kind where you make copies. The kind where someone shows you how things actually work." She kept her voice steady. "I learn fast. I work hard. I don't complain. And I've been doing the books at Sal's diner for the last 8 months because he couldn't afford an accountant." Something shifted in Daniel's expression. "Does Sal know you've been doing his books?" "He knows I help with paperwork," she said. "He pays me an extra $20 a week." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. "If I offered you a check right now, let's say enough to cover a year of school, housing, everything, would you take it?" She thought about it, genuinely thought about it. Not for long, but long enough. "No," she said, "because I don't know you. And because if I take money I didn't earn, it changes how I see myself." She picked up her tea again. "I've seen what happens to people who get given too much too fast. It doesn't always go the way you'd hope." Daniel sat back in his chair. He didn't say anything for almost a full minute. Maya waited. She wasn't nervous. She'd said what she meant. Whatever he did with it was up to him. "My company has a finance division," he said finally. "We run a small internship program. It's real work, full-time for the summer. It pays well, and the people who do well in it, most of them get offers." Maya's grip on her mug tightened just slightly. "I'd have to interview properly," he added. "HR, the whole process. I don't just insert people, but I can make sure your application gets looked at." "Really looked at?" He paused. "The rest would be up to you." She nodded slowly. "That's all I'm asking for." "I know," he said. They talked for another hour after that. Not about money, not about business, about her brother, who was 12 and loved basketball, about her mother, who'd passed 3 years ago, about Daniel's own story, which she hadn't expected him to share, a childhood in a small town in Ohio, a father who worked 2 jobs, a business started in a storage unit with $4,000 he'd borrowed from a cousin. He wasn't what she'd imagined a billionaire would be like. He didn't feel big. He felt careful, measured, like someone who'd learned a long time ago that most of what people show you isn't real. When they finally stood to leave, he held out his hand. "I'll have someone reach out about the interview next week," he said. She shook it. "Thank you for coming back." "Thank you," he said, "for the soup." She laughed. It surprised her. The laugh felt real. She walked home in the cold, hands in her pockets. She didn't let herself hope too much. She'd learned to be careful with hope. Careful with people, too. But something felt different. Something small and warm had opened up inside the gray November morning. She didn't know yet how different things were about to become. Asterisk, asterisk. The email came on a Tuesday. It was from a woman named Rachel UN, Director of Talent Acquisition at Holt Logistics Group. Professional, formal, like it had nothing to do with a rainy diner or a bowl of chicken soup. It asked if Maya was available for a first-round interview the following Thursday. She was available. She was absolutely available, she wrote back within 2 minutes, then spent the next 10 minutes worrying she'd looked too eager. She didn't own anything that felt right to wear. She borrowed a blazer from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who was retired and still kept her old work clothes wrapped in plastic in the closet. It fit almost perfectly. Mrs. Chen cried a little when Maya told her why she needed it. Maya pretended not to notice. The office building was downtown, glass and steel. The kind of building that made you feel smaller just by standing in front of it. Maya stood on the sidewalk for a second, just breathing. Then she walked in. The first interview was with 2 people from HR. Standard questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell us about a challenge you overcame. Maya answered everything clean and honest. No performance, just facts. She told them about managing Sal's books. She'd printed out 3 months of reconciled statements and brought them in a folder. The HR manager looked at them and raised both eyebrows slightly. Not a big reaction. But Maya noticed second interview was 2 days later. This one was with the head of the finance team, a sharp woman named Diana, who asked harder questions. Real questions. What would you do if you noticed an unexplained discrepancy in a quarterly report? How do you handle a situation where a senior employee gives you incorrect guidance? Maya had thought about questions like these, not because she'd guessed them, because she'd been living them quietly. At a diner where the cash register totals never quite matched the receipt tape, and she'd fixed it every single week without being asked. She answered clearly. Diana watched her without expression the whole time. Afterward, waiting for the elevator, Maya told herself not to think about it. Don't build it up. Just go home. Make dinner. Study. She rode the bus home with Mrs. Chen's blazer folded neatly on her lap. Her brother was at the kitchen table when she got home, doing homework. He looked up. How'd it go? I don't know, she said. Maybe good. He nodded seriously, the way 12-year-olds do when they're trying to act older. I told Marcus you might be getting a business job. I don't have it yet, she said. Yet, he said, like it was obvious. She made pasta for dinner. She studied until midnight, and then she sat on the edge of her bed, just for a moment. What it would mean, what the money would mean, what the door would mean. She thought about her mother. What she would have said, probably something short and true, the way she always spoke. Probably something like, "You've been ready for a long time. You were just waiting for the room." On Friday morning, the call came. Rachel Yuan again. Same steady voice. Saying that the team had been very impressed. Saying they'd like to offer her the summer internship, full-time, with a real salary, more than she made in 3 months at the diner combined. Maya sat very still on her kitchen floor. She'd been looking for her other sneaker when the phone rang. She didn't find it. She just sat there on the cold tile, phone pressed to her ear, listening. Maya, do you have any questions? She had 100 questions. She asked none of them. I'll take it, she said. Yes, thank you. I'll take it. She sat there on the floor for a long time after the call ended, just breathing, just quiet, just that small, warm thing growing. She gave Sal 2 weeks' notice the next Monday. He didn't take it well at first. He crossed his arms. He said something about loyalty. Then he looked at her for a long moment, and something behind his eyes went soft. "Your mom would have been proud," he said. "That was the hardest part of the whole thing. Harder than the interviews, harder than the phone call." She held it together until she got to the stockroom. Then she let herself cry for about 2 minutes. Then she wiped her face and went back out and finished her shift. The last day at Sal's was quiet. A few regulars said goodbye. Mrs. Chen came in and ordered coffee, even though she didn't drink coffee. She just sat at the counter and watched Maya work. And when Maya came over, she reached out and patted her hand once without saying anything. The internship started in June. It was hard. That surprised her. She'd expected to feel behind. She was the youngest, one of 2 interns, the only one who'd never attended a 4-year university. But the part she hadn't expected was how fast the work moved. The data sets, the reporting cycles, the meetings where people talked fast and expected you to keep up. She kept up. She stayed late when she needed to. She asked questions when she was lost. She never pretended to understand something she didn't. Diana, her supervisor, seemed to notice that, started including her in more, explaining things without being asked. By August, she wasn't blending into the background anymore. She saw Daniel Holt twice during the summer. Both times briefly. Once in a hallway. He nodded at her. She nodded back. That was it. He didn't make a thing of it. He didn't tell anyone. She found that out later. Nobody on her team knew the story. Nobody knew she was the waitress from the diner. She was just Maya, the intern from the community college, who was very good with numbers and never seemed rattled. She liked it that way. At the end of the summer, the team gathered for the intern review. 2 interns. One offer to extend. They offered it to Maya, a part-time role through the fall semester. Enough hours to work alongside her classes. Enough money to finally apply for the transfer to a 4-year school in January. She accepted on the spot. She called her brother on her lunch break. He yelled, actually yelled, in the middle of whatever he was doing, loud enough that she had to hold the phone away from her ear. She laughed. That real laugh, the one that surprised her. That evening she sat at her small kitchen table and thought about the rain. The night she'd run 2 blocks to get to work on time. The man with the tired eyes and the empty pockets. $7.50. People always say kindness costs nothing. She used to half believe that, but that night it had cost her something. A small piece of her rent. A choice she made when she could barely afford to make it. Not because she knew it would come back to her. Not because she was hoping for anything. Just because a person in front of her needed something and she had just enough to help. That's the real story. Not the billionaire. Not the money. Not the internship. It's the $7.50. That's the part that mattered. That's the part that started everything. She still works hard every day. She still takes the bus. She still checks her account balance more than she should. But the number in that account has changed. And more than that, she has changed. Not because a rich man saved her. Because one rainy night, she saved herself. With a bowl of soup and a stranger's bill she didn't have to pay. And somehow, impossibly, the world noticed.